Hello, this is John with Theologia. This is part two of the Jordan Peele film Him analysis. In part one, we introduced the film a bit, and I went through how this is representing theology and thelema, and also the plans of, I think, the occult elite, at least as they understand it. Now, the film began, Cam was a child, and we had at the same time little Jesus as a child, the nativity scene, you had the candles burning, which indicated he's alive. Then it goes on, there's Cam as a child. Then it moves on to when he's a young adult and his father's died, making a sacrifice for the country, sacrifice being a virtue of the Eon of Osiris. And we have the death of Christ, the end of the Eon of Osiris being represented, the Eon which represents a religion that involves death, resurrection, and so on. So basically the Christian era, and the candles are out. And we saw that he was attacked and he missed the combine, or wasn't able to participate in the combine. So he got a call and he was going to go to Isaiah White, who represented Osiris / Jesus in a sense, as far as the occult understanding is concerned. And he invited him to his house because they're going to do basically, in place of the combine, they're going to see how he performs there by spending several days training with Isaiah White. And on the way there, he finds out that the followers of Osiris, or what you would maybe understand, or they would understand certainly as something like Christian followers, it's a cult, and it's described, they're like a cult, and they do not want Horus. They don't want to move to the post-Christian era, and they're like rabid animals here. Okay, and we go and we show up at Horus. Representative Horus, Cam, shows up at this residence of Isaiah White, Osiris, and has to go in the ground because Osiris governs the realm of the dead and the underworld and all of that stuff. And so he goes in there, and he goes in, no one answers the door for him. He just, makes himself comfortable and goes into Osiris's place, representing sort of a uncomfortable invasion of Osirian dominion. And as he walks in, we see this skull, which is the metal skull here of a wild boar or pig, and it is situated underneath an eclipse symbol. And so we perhaps have a symbol of an eclipse, having a symbol of an eclipse in 2031, the year of the metal pig. That's what it's called in the Chinese calendar. And we go from art here, and that represents medieval type art, Osirian culture, some meditation, and looks like hard-working, self-sacrifice, community, this sort of thing, which is associated with the Eon of Osiris, the Christian era. And you go into the next realm, which is the one that comes after, and we have an individual, portrait of individual, rabid individualism, the individual will, nothing should be between or mediate between the will and the individual in the Eon of Horus. So we get the transition happening around this eclipse time. And I think that's what's being communicated there in their minds and their plans and so on. So they have him coming in and checking this out, pausing to look at it, so you do too. Then we go in and we finally encounter Osiris, Isaiah White. And what, of course, is he doing? He's taking care of the things of the dead, because that's what he rules. He's the one that governs the realm of the dead, and so on. And he tells Cam, don't be a mascot. We talked a little about that. And then we go into day one, which is fun, as Osiris has Cam about to hammer a nail into something dead that he's working on. Okay. And he says, remember, have fun. And then we go into the football field, and it was welcome to church, because, of course, Isaiah's football field, the game he plays, is the religious game of the Eon of Osiris, or the Christian era, and so that's the game. And we go in there, and we're going to watch what they do in church, in a sense. But I want to focus on the eclipse scene, right? In this scene, he goes and he does some stretching and some little training, whatever. And whoops, not there yet. Let me pull it up. And then we get a very interesting sequence. And I mentioned it as a solar eclipse. We're going to look at it more closely and find out that it may not be and isn't probably a solar eclipse, but there's actually a much more complex sequence of eclipses in here, including a solar. But I'll show you. And it's fascinating how it is done. So let's take a look. I'm going to open this up, bring it over onto the screen, and we're going to go through it, not exactly frame by frame, but pretty close. Okay, so we start, and he's going to be talking, Isaiah's going to be talking about, hey, we need to take a look at you here because the owners aren't going to buy damaged goods. Okay, let me get to the next screen here. So we go, and there. And they're going to walk up, and they're going to go up to Marco, and Marco is going to be the guy who is going to, he's the sports medicine doctor. He's going to be the guy who does all the examination. And he walks up. Now, Marco is representing somebody important here. Marco, I suspect, not sure yet, we're going to work on this as we go through the film, is representing Isis, believe it or not. He's a caretaker. Isis is a caretaker, motherly. Okay, he's been with Osiris from day one. He's always been there. And as the of Osiris is going to come to the end of the film, Isis here, this motherly character in a sense, is also going to be sacrificed, because in the of Horus you don't need the same values that you had in the of Osiris. The Osirian Ian in the occult is associated with bringing Isis along from the previous Ian in their worship and so on. So she comes along. That's why, for example, in an Osirian version of Christianity, occult version of Christianity, like Roman Catholicism, which of course is not biblical Christianity, but when you go and you get the Roman Catholic version, you have a very high exalted view of Mary, treating her like co-redemptrix or at least a person that you go to in prayer and you venerate as a saint, and statues and images and all these sorts of things. Okay, this is all associated. But anyways, they come together. When you have Osirian religion, you get some Isis, and he's always there. And that's when they fall together as well. But to the Ian of Horus in Thelema. So he's the sports medicine doctor, and they're going to walk him up, and we're going to see. He's introducing Marco. Been with me since day one, says Osiris. And so you're going to need realignment, painkillers, or anything else, any comfort from anybody. You're going to get it from Marco. That's your man, best in the world. And he says, I know, nice to meet you, sir, and so on. He's going to shake his hand, but nope, he's not going to welcome the handshake yet. He is going to immediately begin the evaluation. And he's going to look at the fracture to the head from the injury from the previous part of the film. And he's, anything else we should know about? Nothing else. Nope, not that I can think of. All good. And he's going to crack his arm here. I'm not sure what we get at this point. Okay, but what we're going to be seeing, and I'm going to show you this, look carefully, and it may happen once he takes his clothes off. Because he's going for the examination, they ask him to take his clothes off for the physical, and he is going to be the center of the solar system, because Horus is the sun. Okay, and what we're going to get is celestial objects orbiting him. You'll see, here we go. So next up, he says, oh, great, that felt good, whatever. Clothes off. So now we're going to enter into the next phase of where we're going to get this. Now, I want you to see, right before we get the clothes off, we have, he's going to be the sun. He's going to be the earth. Okay. Isis is a lunar deity. She's going to be the moon. Okay. And then we also have other persons here which don't play a significant role, but if you look, one's going to leave the scene, disappear, like Pluto, I'm going to say, like, which was a planet but no longer is. And otherwise, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other planets. So 7 plus Earth is 8. Pluto left. That was the 9th, but no, you don't have the 9. And here you have the Sun and Moon and Earth, which are going to be primary in sort of a choreographed representation of celestial events in the solar system. And so he goes here. Now we get him to do his, so he's going to undress or whatever. Skip ahead. I'm trying to. It takes a second because I got all the screens here. So we're going to move up. And now we're going to get him into sun position very clearly, and we're going to get the orbits beginning soon. Okay, so he's going to do, we're going to get specs of the guy, and we're going to get this representation of this huge guy, right? He's a big guy. So they're measuring him. He's tall, 6'5", 210. Notice he's a big yellow person, okay? And big yellow, that's the sun. Big and yellow. Look at how big he is. Big yellow guy. Okay, now we're going to keep going. He's going to turn around, and we're going to get the orbiting arms up. We're going to get wingspan, 84.25, 84.25 inch wingspan, 10.2 inch hand size, probably all important in some way. I haven't figured out what yet, but we may need to look for example, I don't know, yeah. We'll brainstorm later, but or maybe you can brainstorm. But 10.2, I know there was a very important eclipse in 2023 on October 2nd, but I don't know if it's looking back, okay? And I don't know if he should even be understood as eclipses here yet. But we're going to measure him. He's big. We're going to get hand size. We got 15-inch biceps and so on. But now a conversation is going to start. So how's the family? Your mom must be proud, huh? Okay. And as we have Isis doing the measurements here, my dad nearly worshipped you growing up. You see, the father, remember, he was worshiping Isaiah, the dead and resurrected Savior. The football team was the Saviors. He's the GOAT of the Saviors. Okay, and so he was nearly worshipped. Then he went to the military and died for America, and with a plaque that said "sacrifice." Okay, that's very Osirian. That's very self-denial type of service for the United States, which again is considered an Osirian institution that needs to be brought down if you want to enter the Aeon of Horus. Made me watch that clip of of your injury all the time. And now, look, over here to the right, Isaiah is going to be orbiting him. He's going to walk around. He wanted to show me what it's like to be a real man. This could possibly be an eclipse right here. We have Sun-Earth alignment, but we have Moon off to the side. But that's not necessarily the end of that significance. But we can make a mental note of that. Possibly need to add that to my count. But he goes around. Sounds like a fun childhood, Isaiah speaking, similar to mine. He's going to keep walking around. Mine was actually worse. Still going around, say the orbit. Maybe that's why I'm so good at my job. Wonder, if you look, he is spinning the football as he walks. This is clearly an orbit. See, you sort of see it as he walks by, as the football's in his hands, he's spinning it. I wonder if the football represents the moon in this scene. If so, the football was in front of him when they aligned. So that would be sun, football, Osiris, Earth. So that would be, from the other angle, that would be a solar eclipse. But let's see. So we keep going. And the sun is walking, or the Earth is walking around and orbiting the moon, spinning it as he goes around him. Boom, there it spins again. Okay, so it's very possible that's what's being looked at here. And meanwhile, the evaluation is still going on. He's following Isaiah around, and we get some little numbers in here. Goes up to 20, what is that? That's a 26. Yeah, so that's a 26. And not sure if that means the year or what, if that's where we're at in the scene. But maybe not a year at all. 26 could be something else. Resting heart rate is strong, 40 beats per minute. Of course, we get the crucified Jesus on the crucifix. Whenever Cam has a cross, it's a crucifix. It's a dead Jesus, because that's what he's bringing. Whenever Isaiah has a cross, like his earring or whatever, it doesn't have a crucifix, because he's a risen Jesus, right? And so they're representing the end of the era with the crucifix. How'd you get back on the field? Just like early in the film, in the nativity scene, you had a living Jesus, then you had him dead at the end. They're highlighting the death of Christ. And so he asks Isaiah, how did you survive? Even back here, somebody else is sort of walking around. But how did you survive that injury? as now we're going to get a death and resurrection. He says, I nearly killed myself. As he still is strolling around a little, but he's still walking. Okay, so we're still getting the orbit. And he pauses for a second. I nearly killed myself. The evaluation, the trainer is still evaluating, but I'm going to go back here. I'm going to see what. So I nearly killed myself. And he pauses as if that's suspicious, because he probably did some sort of ritual, death, resurrection, whatever, at the same time. You'll see in a second. He had to do crazy things to stay goat or to be goat, especially as a black man, he says. But he's going to keep going here, and then he pauses as rehabbing. He has to explain rehabbing to give him an explanation of how he almost killed himself. But the real story is he died and rose again is the idea. He's trying to communicate death, resurrection, which is why the candles went out when he got injured on the nativity scene, represented the death of him and the resurrection. So now we're going to keep going. And as a black quarterback, he says, notice here, look at the eyes. It's supposed to be the eyes of Horus. And we're getting the reflection of the flashlight from Marco. And that's like the moon reflecting in his eye. Okay? It says that the light from Horus is actually causing the little distant celestial body relative to him. And imagine what I had to do to be the greatest of all time. But what did he have to do? Well, he almost strangles him with this measurement. The trainer does this time. The idea is he killed. Just like at the end of the film, Horus, to become goat, is going to have to kill Isaiah. Okay. But so we keep going. When you love something, it's easy to make sacrifices for it as the orbit continues. You see how he's going around? Now we're going to continue this scene. What keeps you what keeps you on the field, right? What gets you motivated? Definitely my family. Another light to the eye showing this. Okay. They sacrificed a lot for me. The orbit is still happening back here. He is still going. This scene is clearly representing the solar system with Horus as the center and Osiris orbiting Horus. And we're going to see Marco playing a role in here as well. All right, he says, I want you to remember that when you can't push no further, your family as the motivation. Okay, and now we get an alignment. We're going to see Sun, Moon, Earth. That is a solar eclipse, possibly the second solar eclipse in the film, the sequence, if we go back to that very early one, because he had one, and then he walked around 2 times. Isaiah at least 2 times went around Horus, like that would be 2 years, right? So you have an eclipse, solar eclipse perhaps, and they have 2 trips around, something like that. We'll have to look at that again. But and then we get this solar eclipse. There's the alignment. That's Sun, Moon, Earth. Sun, Horus, Marco, Moon, Earth, Isaiah. That's why he lives in the earth, right? He's a terrestrial deity in their view. We go over here. Then, quickly after that initial eclipse, we get a follow-up lunar eclipse. You get a solar eclipse, and then you get a lunar eclipse. This is also total. Notice that the light of the moon is going to go out here. And down it goes. Okay? No more light because a lunar eclipse hides the light of the moon. And so now we get the lunar eclipse, which follows. So we have a total solar, followed by a total lunar eclipse. He goes off, and then he comes back for a partial eclipse. Now, I believe this is going to have to be a partial solar, not a partial lunar. I'm not, just because of how eclipses are ordered, you won't find that sequence anywhere in the century, I don't believe, if this was a lunar. I think this is solar, and that's why what's being eclipsed is the sun. So you get a partial eclipse from our view but I'm not sure. We'll see. Because we're gonna switch in just a second. We are going to become the moon, I believe. We're gonna take Marco's position. Marco's gonna disappear. The flashlight's down. He's out of the picture now. Watch, and boom. That's where Marco's standing roughly on the side of him. And then we are going to orbit. Okay. Now, as we go around, he says what we do and the money we make so we can take care of our family. If we're the moon, if we're Marco now, this is a lunar eclipse because you'd have the sun's light blocked by the earth and the shadow cast on the moon. That'd be us. Okay, so it'd be a lunar eclipse if we're the moon. I guess I think that's it. But if otherwise, the other possibility is that we're not the moon, but we're a planet, and this is a planetary alignment or something. No clue. I think we are Marco here. That's what makes the most sense in the context, the way it's been unfolding. But so we get this, and that lunar eclipse marks what? But if you want to transcend the game, a big change. Okay. Now, we need to think about what all this represents. Okay, he's going to go, and this is the end of your eclipse symbolism in there, I believe. Now, so we got this eclipse here. If we go back to the beginning, let's see if okay, if I go back up here, let me see. We get an initial alignment. 1 second. I'm looking on a different monitor here to find my position. At the beginning, right around here. Oops. Right, we go. He does the cracking. And after this, we're going to get some alignment. So did I already miss it? Okay, we saw that we're in a solar system. I may have missed it. Well, there was one eclipse, but it isn't clear if it's a lunar or solar. I think it's a solar because, well, maybe not. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about that one. Where is it even at? I have to find it. I should have put it in a slide rather than go through these pictures. But I think that the images allowed me to show the motion better, which is why I did it like this today. But so what we're going to get is an alignment. But we get these different ones. Let me go ahead. I'm just going to close that out. We go here. And we get these eclipse. And we need to figure out what they are in order, I think. And that's how to work. Somebody's at the door. I have to see if I can pause. I can't. I guess I'll save and no, I can't pause. Okay. So we have these eclipses. We've got the total solar, total lunar, partial, total. We're going to have to add here one before it with a 1 or 2 year gap. I think is how we're going to have to look at that because we have the passing around in circles. If I could have found it, again, I would have been able to show it. I'm looking on the other screen. Maybe I'll be able to find it here in a second. He goes here. It's weird. It's so hard to find. Yeah, whatever. Okay. But we're going to have to put one before it. But then we have a total solar, total lunar. I put a lunar here, but I think that's wrong. I think that needs to be a solar. In fact, I'm going to escape. I'm going to edit that. Solar. And then we have a total lunar again. So we get total solar, total lunar, partial or penumbral. I was speculating. I don't think it's going to be penumbral. Lunar eclipse would be instead a partial solar eclipse. And we need to add at the top something like a total eclipse, total solar 2 years before. Okay, and that 26 that shows up on that dial could be an indication of where this began, or what, I don't know. Just I'm totally speculating there. I'm not going to worry about it at this point, because this sequence, total solar, total lunar, partial solar, total lunar, is not common. Okay, I have a spreadsheet here with all of the eclipses of the 21st century, and I went through trying to see how many times we get solar, lunar, partial, anything, and then total, a lunar total again afterwards. Okay, and it's rare. Now, one thing I should check. Do we ever get with? I don't think we ever get even with the penumbral. Almost positive, because penumbral I put gray. Okay, so if you go down, here's the first time it happens in the 21st century. You get total solar, total lunar, and you get a partial solar and a total lunar. That was in 2015. Next time you get it, 2033. Solar total, lunar total, solar partial, lunar total. This also, incidentally, is the year. You can see these from Wikipedia where they're at. But this also is after the 2031 year with the possibly the metal pig eclipse. Okay, in that year that was already depicted before. So if you get an order, you walk into the house, you're at 2031, then you go and you get the 4 eclipse sequence, 2033. That's possible. I'm not sure if that's what it's pointing to. Okay, next time you get it, goes all the way to the 2070s. Total solar, total lunar, solar partial, lunar total. Okay, and then you might get one more time, 89. 2089. That's it. Okay, this isn't a sequence that happens all the time. So if it is pointing to a sequence in history, on our calendar, it looks like it's probably pointing to, if it's close, 2033, which would be shortly after the 2031 eclipse in the hallway. Now, I should add here, these eclipse symbols they're symbolically meaningful for them as well, not just like calendar markers. So, for example, an eclipse here, a solar eclipse, is Osiris is still eclipsing Horus. Okay, a lunar eclipse is when we start to get the elimination of Osiris. Or the elimination of the moon, Isis. I'm not sure, but there's this is something that we need to investigate as well, so that we study Thelema, what they actually think the spiritual, quote unquote, theological meaning of the eclipses are in relation to the transition. But what we are seeing is a struggle, where each of them is trying to eclipse the other. One time you have a failed eclipse, and so on, and ultimately we get a final victory at this last one, because as he goes around, he goes around this way. He talks about Horus transcending him. If you want to transcend the game, what game? Well, the church game, the Christian era. You're going to have to dig deeper and go beyond what you've been thinking. Anyways, that's the big picture. I think this scene is worth close examination because I think it's quite clear that what we're looking at is a choreographed solar system scene with like a dance of the bodies, of celestial bodies, with Horus as the center and the Earth orbiting it, and we get alignments and eclipses and so on that are instructive about what they see coming. And it could help us pinpoint a time again with these eclipses falling here. So we got the metal pig eclipses in 2031. I hate that. All the pop-ups right there. The series, and probably this total/hybrid is the main one. Okay, and then you would get the subsequent period. Now, one thing that we'll find is later on at the end of part the fun day, day one, in him, he goes underwater and then he comes up is awakened out of the water with a cockle-doodle-doo, okay, a rooster crow, which I don't think that points to anything necessarily. I was trying to figure out what exactly, but the year of the rooster is 2029. If you're interested and want to keep that in mind when you look at the scene, try to make sense of it all. Okay. Well, anyways, like, subscribe, share. Take care. Check out the Patreon as well. I have posted something over there. Let me know what you think. Take care. Blessings.